Our Across the Aisle segment tonight, let's make this very clear. The election is over. Donald Trump is the president. Nothing liberals do is going to delegitimize that. So liberals have a choice to make. They can riot and they can obstruct. They can throw a fit at every tweet President Trump sends, or they can try to find common ground with the new administration on issues like trade and infrastructure. What are they going to choose? Well, I think we can tell by their behavior. But joining me now is Democratic State Representative from Georgia, LaDawn Jones. Representative Jones, good to see you.
How's it going, Liz? Good to see you again.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Representative Jones, let me ask you about this. I have been asking people this all week. This is probably the one question I've been most interested in this whole week from both sides of the aisle. And that question I want to pose to you now, is there anything, in your opinion, that Democrats, and I'm not just talking about everyday Democrats out in America, because I don't think they're always represented well on both sides of the aisle by our congresspeople, but is there anything that the Democratic politicians in the House and in the Senate will be willing to work with President Trump to achieve?
You know, there are certain things. We know we've seen his executive order on TPP today, right? And he's getting a little bit of support from people like Senator Sanders and others who said that this was a good thing. But in general, one of the things that Democrats have to work harder on is fighting for what they want. And I think we can tell by the millions of women around the world who marched just this week that they want us to fight for the things that they want. So we may be able to work across the aisle, but we're not just going to give it up to Trump so easily. He can't just grab.
No, and I wouldn't advocate that. I mean, I didn't advocate that the other way around. You know, the past 8 years, I was the loyal opposition. You and I talked about that last week. But I guess one of the things I was referring to specifically was when Steve Harvey met with the Trump transition team last week. He met with them to talk about housing and urban development. He may even work with Ben Carson as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And liberals, black liberals specifically, gave him such a hard time for meeting with him. Mark Lamont Hill even said that black people who work with Trump are mediocre Negroes. But they have common goals here, Representative Jones. I don't understand where the hatred's coming from. Trump is meeting with people from both sides of the aisle to try to devise a plan to better our inner cities, to increase education and access to health care. Why can't this be a cooperative effort?
You remember that whole conversation to a previous presidential debate where they talked about we will or will not meet with people without preconditions? Well, it's similar to that, right? We have seen a tense rhetoric throughout the campaign. And so now that President Trump is elected, we want to make sure that if you're going to sit down with him, you're not doing it without preconditions. We have to be sure that you're not just saying, okay, President Trump, this is what you want. We want to make sure that there are people who are going to hold his feet to the fire and make him say, you know what? Some of my rhetoric is too tough. By the things that I say, clearly, I am not considering what's going on in the African-American community. He appointed Ben.
No, I understand that, but if you refuse, say you're sitting here and you disagree with everything that Trump does and everything that Trump says. If you just based off of morals or based off of principles say, I refuse to talk to this man because I so disagree with what he says, that way he is going to get his way. He's going to get 10 out of 10 from what he wants. But if his opposition is willing to sit down with him, even under the understanding that they don't agree with what he's done or what he said or his policies, and they're able to negotiate with him and get it down to 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, isn't that better for the people that they represent than letting him do everything?
That could be one way of going about it. That would not be the way that I would suggest going about it. So at the end of the day, the way that our country is set up, he's going to have to sit down at the table through Congress, through his administration with the Democrats. So the Democrats could just say, well, we're going to play nice and see what we can get, or they can go real tough and know that every time Donald Trump comes to the table, he's going to come prepared. And he knows he is going to have to be prepared to give up some things for us. We need to hold our position in this negotiation, and the way you do that is by playing tough ball with one of the hardest negotiators there are. You can't just give in to him, otherwise we will never get anything.
Right, and I guess I disagree a little bit with the premise in the sense that I don't think that President Trump does have to sit down with Democrats to do this. I mean, it's his prerogative here to reach across the aisle. We saw the same situation in reverse with President Obama. I mean, he didn't have to work with Republicans on much of the things that he wanted to accomplish. So I'm not sure Democrats have the position of power to play hardball here.
Well, but here's the difference. President Obama had the support of the Democrats. although the Republicans are playing real nice now, we already know that many of them do not like President Trump very much, and it's only going to take a few more of his Trump tweets before they feel like they can't back him up. And then he's going to start to lose support. There was a lot of Republican support for TPP. That's how it passed without Democratic support. And so he's already showing things that will indicate that he's not always going to be a party person, which is fine. That's how he got into office. So because of that, because he does not have the full support of the Republican Party in the same way that Obama did, it's not going to work out quite the same for him, and the Democrats are going to make sure of that.
Right, that's interesting. I mean, that's not something I can predict. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure that that's the case because there's a Republican majority in the House and in the Senate. You know, they can they have some power there, I guess, to push back against him just as much as he has the power to say, oh, I don't want to do it that way. But let me ask you about a part of Trump's inaugural speech here, a part that I would have thought would appeal to people on both sides of the aisle. I think that was his objective there, to try to unify, because, I mean, we both agree, even from different political standpoints, our country needs to be unified here. But take a look at this clip from his speech.
When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. We are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
All right, Representative Jones, I want to pose you the same question again. I posed this question to a Republican yesterday. If a Democratic president, a newly inaugurated Democratic president or Democratic politician had said that exact phrase, Democrats would have loved it. Transferring power back to the people from the government, they would have loved it. They tore him apart for saying this just because he's a Republican.
Well, for me, what I'm looking at are the people that he's putting in place for his confirmation, the people that he's putting as a part of his cabinet. He is still putting money in the hands and his whole support team.
He's talking about the American people here. He's talking about shrinking government, giving power back to the states, giving power back to communities, giving power back to schools, giving power back to the voters, rather than bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. deciding, you know, what's best for our life or how to spend our money. I mean, that should be a bipartisan message, and it seems to me the Democrats are just opposing that because on principle they want to oppose a president with a little R behind his name.
Not at all. What we're seeing is we're listening as Democrats to what President Trump is saying, but we're also watching what he's doing. Just like he said he was going to turn over those taxes after the election. And now he's telling you, which we already knew as Democrats, that he's not. So we hear him
No,
saying...
he said it would be after the audit. We did just talk about this actually on the show. I agree with you. If he doesn't do it, that would be breaking a promise. I think he has that little wiggle room because he hasn't completed that audit that we know of yet. But let me ask you this then. As a Democrat who is perhaps skeptical of a President Trump, list me 3 things that you agree, policies that you think Democrats could work together with President Trump to achieve, or 3 things that you do agree with him.
Absolutely. So one, I do agree with his decision on TPP. I think that we're bringing American jobs home. I think that that is an excellent way to do that. I strongly disagree with President Obama on that. The other thing is I do think that there are ways that we really do need to put America first. For many years, we have spent a lot of time, money, and energy in our military fighting other people's wars. And although I think as one of the richest countries in the nation, we have a duty to help other people, I think that we need to reconsider that. I think Trump will do that. Number 3, I think his daughter Ivanka is beautiful. I don't know.
I think everyone in the country agrees on that one. She is classy. She is poised. No, I think a lot of Democrats agree with his idea that we need to do something to address the violence and the drug trafficking that's happening in our inner cities, the access to education, the access to health care there. And I would think that that would be the primary thing at this point that Democrats and Republicans could actually sit in a friendly manner at the table and do something about. But apparently we haven't seen it, and that's where the question stemmed from. That's the motivation for my question is, if not this, then what? And it's been very interesting hearing your opinion. Thanks for being on the show, Representative Jones.